Hey all, DJ Nubis here with you, Military Radio Podcast, doing a little bit of a discussion about the recent shark attack on 35-year-old Simon Nellis in Buchan Point in near Sydney, Australia. Obviously, I, I, for myself, I follow sharks. I have a lot of shark books, personal experience with sharks. Uh, So I have an interest in sharks in general, whether it's movies or real life stuff and stuff like that. And so I'd recently heard about this attack, and there's some added things to it that are both disturbing and yet probably things we can learn from. So this particular video, I don't know if when I'm done with it, YouTube's going to take it down because I am going to use a couple of clips that are graphic, and for those that don't want to watch it, please skip through it. But again, this is kind of just for me, not to offend anyone, not to hurt the victims' families, not to glorify anything. It's more of like a teaching tool for a couple different things. So before we get to all that, though, there's just some things we need to discuss, and I'm going to go through some different things about how it happened, who he was, why it happened, and how to prevent such things from happening in the future. And there could be many different opinions about how about dealing with this type of issue with sharks and humans when they interact in the ocean. So apparently Simon is visiting this part of Australia. He's there for I guess he's going to be doing a charity swim event somewhere over there, and this is a popular swimming beach. So it's already a place and it hasn't had an attack there, at least a fatal one, in like 60 years. So that's a pretty good amount of years not to go without any kind of fatal shark attack. Now, they probably had people bitten here and there, but nothing like this. And from the reports, it sounds like the shark itself is about 15 feet long, which is pretty big for a white shark. And they usually get pretty big. So uh, now a little bit about Simon was he was a diver. He's very experienced. Now he wasn't diving; he was just swimming, but he has diving experience. He's been very familiar with the water and oceans, and he really loved the ocean. So he also had swam with sharks before, so it's not like he had any kind of phobia or fear of it. And he's very aware, I'm sure, that they're out there. He's also was very much against like banning of, he wants to ban shark nets. And also something we learned after the fact was this part of the beach area was supposed to be having some drum lines installed that would hook sharks, and try to keep the beach safer, which was another thing that Simon was very against. And it was supposed to happen like a few days after his attack, so apparently it didn't happen soon enough to prevent him from being attacked. Uh, Witnesses say the shark attack was vertical, not horizontal, so it doesn't sound like it was a seal, like coming up from underneath and hitting him hard. This was sort of like it had kind of like come up behind him vertically and hit him pretty fast. The other thing about this attack that I've learned, and this is something that's common in Australian waters. I've read this before in many books that I have. There's a saying in Australia that sharks don't attack people; they take them. And what they mean by that is they're generally devoured. Like it's something you don't see really anywhere else in the world except for Australia. Like when the attacks happen, the bodies are generally consumed, or most of them. And we don't know why it happens there, but apparently on those part of the world and those waters, like it's whether it's the feeding habits of the sharks over there or something else, I don't know. But from people who witnessed this, and we saw kind of when you get to the video parts of it, you'll see it's not something you can see totally clear, but you kind of get the gist of it. The shark kept coming back for the remains. So like clearly this wasn't like a hit and run where the shark thought, oh, okay, I got the wrong thing and I left. This shark kept coming after him, and it clearly was hungry. And one thing that was mentioned was also on this particular beach, you didn't see any sea lions or seals. So like a shark that might be cruising up the coast, and there are different seal colonies around Australia. So like, but this part of it, there wasn't any. And one of the fishermen on that day had said that there were no seals present. So either they were all up on the beach and not in the waters, or because the fisherman thought that was like a clear sign that something wasn't right, like when there's no seals in and out of the water. But I'm going to get to some of that too, about in terms of surfers and swimmers who often do that with seals, and they're out there with seals and whatnot because of the the waves and everything else. So Buchan Point is known for its game fishing, which is another thing. We're going to start getting into the dangers of swimming where people are fishing. This isn't just for Australia, but other parts of the world as well. If you're ever on a beach somewhere, Florida, the Carolinas, whatever, you will oftentimes see someone fishing from the shore or from the walkways, and that's it's never really a good idea. I mean, I should stress that shark attacks in general are very low, and they don't happen often. And oftentimes, I talked about it the other day. People don't understand that sharks are always out in the water. I think I showed some videos the other day where the guy takes his drone up and he's filming people, and he's just kind of looking. There's sometimes there's 2 or 3 great whites around people in the water. They have no clue that it's happening, and there's no incidents. Like you still don't have no incidents. Now, those waters are clearly a little bit different than Australian waters. As I said, the sharks over in Australia, whatever is going on there, they are ravenous, and they generally consume the people they attack for no apparent real reason. Now the question was, some people did the fishermen lure the sharks there or shark there? Personal experience has taught me that fishing and fish that are hooked up are in distress and bleeding and wiggling, and those all send signals to sharks. A distressed fish will do that, and if there's already a white shark in the area, clearly someone fishing is going to be drawing the shark into that specific area with that. And it's never a good idea to be swimming where people are fishing, because you're just, even though you may not have a fatal attack, you may not even get attacked at all, but if you do, sometimes you just get bit on the hand. But I mean, sharks' teeth are sharp. I mean, you can lose fingers, hands, legs, whatever. But you have to be wary of your surroundings, of what's going on out there. Sometimes people don't care about that. You talk to a lot of surfers and divers, and some divers who are abalone divers, they will go out in Australia and take the risk because the money is so good for the abalone that they grab, that they'll take the risk to swim in shark infested waters with the chance of being killed. So same with surfers. They feel like it's they have an understanding that they're in their waters, and when they're surfing, they know the risk is always there. I'm sure Simon Nellis knew the risk of being out there, but my thought process is, it's easy to say a lot of that, and then when it actually happens, it's probably like, I can only imagine the thoughts going through this guy's head, because he was literally engaged to be married. Like, you are out there and you've been in the water before and you've seen sharks, and you you work on behalf of sharks to keep them from being killed, but then you're now facing one of the greatest predators in the water, who is not. It's just not relenting. It keeps coming after you, and that has to be a horrific thing. And there's the articles that are out there. They often say there was some screams from the guy, and he's asking for help. And we're going to start getting into the video portion of this, mainly because the reactions to these videos are very dividing. And there's people all over the world that argue for and against this kind of stuff. I can see a bit of both sides, and I'll explain that a little bit when I show these to you guys. The first one is actually the part where pretty soon when the attack happens. So like I said, the guy who's actually shooting it, his camera's not always on what's going on. So like you see some of the stuff that's going on, and it's kind of at a distance. You can definitely see when the water turns red. You can see a little bit of the shark itself, because it's a big ass shark. Their reactions are something that could turn you off, because it's almost like they're watching a movie or something, and you wouldn't take pride in like what you're hearing. Now, there's people that have made arguments on behalf of these guys, because in terms of like maybe it wasn't just sinking in their head like what was really going on. And then there's going to be other questions about why not go help this guy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about it. The second video is a bit more disturbing. It's a little more clear. This is when Simon's already dead, really. What's left of him is kind of just floating in the water. And then we see, of course, the shark come back, and it's continued to consume him. It is disturbing. It is a little graphic. So again, you might skip through this if you don't want to see it. I totally understand that, but for the purpose of this discussion, it kind of needs to be done just to give point of reference of what's going on here. So first, we're going to look at the one where the attack sort of happened on its own. So here we go.
That's insane. The person's still there.
So yeah, that's the first one. I actually kind of missed some of the early part, because he says it was a great white. He says to what happened there, and you can kind of hear the Simon kind of yelling out a little bit for help. But these guys are kind of calm, and they're kind of just treating it like it's something they see every day. But a lot of people took issue with that, and of course they took issue with filming it. Now, I can say for myself, when it comes to both of these videos, if I'm there live like they are, I have no thought process in my head to video it. Like, that doesn't really occur to me, because I'm probably in shock from what I'm seeing. And then there's a part of me that's saying to myself, I really want to help this person, but I know that, like, one, by the time I get to him, he's probably already dead, because you can see the devastation, especially in the second video. The devastation is just brutal. Two, as I said, sometimes when people go to assist people in shark attacks, they themselves become attacked. So there's really no guarantee that either one of you are getting out of the water alive there. Unless I had like a Sea-Doo or a jet ski or a boat, that's probably the way I would do it. If I knew I had like some sort of way to get out there and help that guy, that means not getting my ass in the water. Whether that sounds cowardly, I don't know. But the reality is, I've seen situations where, not personally, but reading about it, where people try to help someone who's been hurt, and it's a high risk thing. And then we're talking about a shark here who's not relenting. It's still continuing to come after its victim. And so when you have a shark that's adamant to try to like get its food, that's a bigger problem. It's one thing if the shark was kind of like just you had bitten them and kind of just wandered off somewhere nearby, and you had a chance to get them and kind of bring them back. But judging by what we're going to see in this other video, it was almost impossible to save this guy. So here's the other video where basically Simon is pretty much done. Like, it's a very sad thing to see. But you're going to see the body, and then you're going to see the shark come back for it. So here we go with this one.
Viewer discretion is advised. This is graphic content.
So yeah, if you see like the dorsal fin and the tail fin of that shark, it is massive. Like 15 foot is massive. The reality is that Simon probably stood like zero chance the minute he was hit the first time. Like, I think I could see. It looked like both his legs were actually gone, and maybe even his arms. I don't know. It's a sad situation to see there with that. But I think that no matter how experienced you are with the waters, diving, swimming, whatever, you always have to be cautious about when and where you're swimming, your surroundings. There's another issue where I've read and watched shark things, documentaries in the past about times of day. Apparently Simon was swimming around 4:30 in the afternoon. Now I know that both mornings from like, I think it's 6 to 10 or maybe 6 to 9 a.m. and from 3 to 5 p.m. are kind of like what they call the hot zone times not to be in the water, especially alone. So time of day is a big factor here with Simon being in the water. The fact that there's fishermen fishing nearby is another red flag. Something, I mean, from what I understand, even after this attack, apparently there was other people swimming. Like an hour after the attack, there were people nearby still swimming. Now, I don't know. They say that Simon was in a part of the waters where it was the deepest. So everyone else was probably more close to shore, but then this rocky area that Simon had started swimming and wandering off to was in a deeper part of that section. So obviously, white sharks use deeper waters for camouflage because their backs are dark, usually from the tanning of the sun and whatnot. But it helps them camouflage on the ocean floor so that they can't be seen by seals. Now, granted, the shark did not launch itself like you would normally see in the Farallon Islands, but in this case, it probably still used the deep water as a way to kind of sneak up on Simon the way it did. Yeah, it's a tragedy all the way around. As far as my outlook on people who film this kind of stuff, I'm neither nor judgmental about it, nor nor do I really condone it. I know everyone acts to things differently than others, so I can't really say were these guys assholes for the way that they reacted to this shark attack. Were they not distraught enough or whatever? But we know that people react to things differently, and so who knows what was going through their heads at the time of this. Like I said, if I had been in their shoes, my phone's the last thing on my mind. I'm not going to break it out and try to film something. That's just not something that I do. It would just never occur to me that that's something that I should do. Uh, but the experience itself would be very traumatic because you're watching someone perish in front of you, and it's just very sad. And so, one of the other things that kind of bothers me about all this is a little while later we get the rescue teams on their Sea-Doos and the boats. They're all coming out there trying to find the body and the remains of whatever's left. From what I understand, they did find some remains. I don't know how much, but you're on a beach there in Australia where in a week or so you're going to have drum lines put up. So that tells me you're already aware there's sharks in the area, whether or not fatal attack has happened in 60 years or not. The fact that we have sharks there should be a concern. Now, I'm not a big fan of nets or drum lines either. I really hate that. I don't want sharks cold just because people can't, use common sense, or we can't come up with better ways. So, like the video I posted the other day about the guy with the drone, I feel the same way that guy does, that drones need to be put in use much, much more because, one, you're not killing sharks in the process, but two, he's able with his drone to alert people when there's sharks nearby. Like, obviously, we need to be smart about it. We can't be like blaring an alarm that makes people panic to the point that they will get bit anyway. But if there's a way, like the way he does his drone, he has like little shark teeth on the front of it, but then underneath he has like a fin. So when he's flying over like surfers and people on kayaks and stuff, he's basically letting them know, because he probably talks to them on the beach before they even go out anyway. He lets them know, if you see me with this around your area, that means I know there's a shark within your vicinity. So you should be cautious and make sure that you're looking out for the thing, because it doesn't mean the shark's going to attack them, but that's what he does. And I think the drones are like a brilliant idea instead of like nets, which can usually kill dolphins and other creatures, and drum lines, which really dead sharks and that stuff will all attract other sharks sometimes. So not something you really want to do. It's not the best methods at all to do that. But why? What about lifeguards and the rescue people? Like, they didn't take long to get there, obviously, but it was well after the attack happened. So I'm wondering myself, where are the spotters? All this other stuff. Like, were there signs posted about the chances of fishing and swimming, and like what kind of precautions were taken on this beach to prevent stuff like this from happening? And they often say, like, it might be the first fatal attack in 60 years, but it's really one attack too many. So it's like this guy lost his life because maybe we should have been a little more forward thinking and about how we handle like sharks in the areas. And again, my heart goes out to Simon's family, his fiance. It's a terrible tragedy and a loss. But I hope with discussing it like this, that we learn something from it. Rather than overreact or go kill 1,000 sharks or blame people for videoing it or whatever. Like, we find ways to talk about it and find better ways to understand what happened and why it happened and what we could have done to prevent it. So, Guy, if you have any thoughts, hit me up in the comments. I know it's going to be touchy. I don't know how YouTube's going to handle this with me showing the videos, but I may end up talking about it on my podcast in a couple weeks. I've already recorded the one for next week, so I won't be on there. But just depending on what happens, hopefully YouTube won't be dicks and allow me to have this discussion with you all about this subject, because I'm not trying to glorify it. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. It's just important to me when it comes to sharks that we have a true understanding of them, and the waters when we get in with them, that we understand where we are and the possibility of attack occurring. So thank you all. Have a good night. Be safe.